Good evening. This is your regular weekly program, the Guyana Dialogue. The Guyana Dialogue is sponsored by a group of Guyanese who live overseas as well as some who live within the Caribbean region, including Guyana. Today, we have as our special guest the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, one of the hardest working government ministers we have. So we are very lucky to pull him off his schedule to be with us this afternoon to talk about developments in the agriculture sector. So we welcome all of you and also our panelists, Professor Mahin Hariraj and Professor Narain Prasad. Welcome, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I'm happy to
Yeah.
be on your program, and let me thank you for inviting me to this event and afford me the opportunity to speak on the developments in the agriculture sector and the challenges being faced.
Yeah, I know we've been trying a long time to get you, and you're always tied up. You're traveling.
But
on
as a matter of
official
fact,
business.
when I was communicating with you this afternoon, I was in Kimbia with the president. We were looking at some land there to start black eyed peas production. Then we went to Mara in East Berbice, and after that we flew to Molson Creek. I just came back when I called you for the link about 10 minutes ago.
Wow.
And here I am now. We are doing the Guyana Dialogue.
Yeah. As if we are not seeing any picture of the minister. I don't know if you can do anything about that.
I am seeing myself on the screen though.
Okay, now it's fine. Okay, Minister, thank you very much. And before I go, I just want to express our deep concern with the number of road accidents in Ghana, including road fatalities. I think it has come to a time now where the president should really address the nation on that because it's getting worse, and the importation of more vehicles and more roads is likely not to improve. So we are asking all drivers to be very careful on the road and pay attention, as well as pedestrians. Basic rules of the roads people must observe, and we are hoping that the traffic department can do a better job at policing and managing the traffic in Guyana. That being said, I want to welcome you again, Minister, and I want to ask you the first. I know a lot of people have been asking us about the status of GuySuCo, and especially your plan to bring back Rosal into production. So if you can start with that, we'd appreciate.
So generally, thanks, Doc. And before I go directly to your question about GuySuCo, I just want to make some very, very short points on some of the things that we have been doing. And the last time I have been on your program, from then to now, I think a lot of development have taken place in the agriculture sector. Although we are an oil and gas producing country now, and that sector is very exciting. We are also seeing a lot of excitement in the agriculture sector, and I think this happened since we reassumed government in 2020. I have never seen the focus so much what we are having in agriculture now. We are witnessing a revolution in the agriculture sector, and this came about because of our vision in making Guyana a center for food production, making Guyana resilient, and at the same time make Guyana food secure. And you would have known, and many countries around, and your panelists also, many countries around the world would have suffered the consequences of scarcity of food during the 3 years, or the main 3 years that we had the pandemic. Although they had large sums of money, they were unable to procure foods food, sorry, for the population because there was simply a scarcity of food and a downturn in production. However, we in Guyana, we are producing almost 60% of the food that we are consuming. And as a government, we would like to see we produce more. And later on in the program, I will elaborate on the diversification, the new crops that we are adding on to the traditional crops that we are doing or we have been doing over the centuries. And you'll see how agriculture has become so attractive now. It's almost competing, although it's not bringing the kind of that amount of revenue that oil and gas is bringing in. But you'll see that agriculture is so exciting that you have droves of people coming in to invest in agriculture and coming back to agriculture. You have a renewed interest now. You see a renewed focus in the agriculture sector. So we have positioned the agriculture sector as an expanded, diversified, modernized, resilient, and competitive sector that we are trying to make the agriculture sector into those. Because if you look at the investment that we have made when I became Minister of Agriculture in 2020, the budgetary allocation in this sector was $13.3 billion. In 2015, when we left government, or when the PPP Civic came out of government, the investment or the budget in the agriculture sector was $18.5 billion. Instead of increasing that, what we saw a decrease in the investment. It went down to $13.3 billion in 2020. And today, from 2020 August to now, we have seen 150% increase in budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Agriculture. Today, we have a budget of $33.2 billion. And only last week, I was in the Parliament defending another $6 billion, a supplementary budget for the rest of the year for main sectors. And one of the sectors that you mentioned, GuySuCo. GuySuCo was one of the sectors that I have received some more funding for, and to do work in that sector, and including the DNI and other sectors. So we will talk about going to that. But coming to your question, GuySuCo, we have seen this year, we have seen a 14% increase in production in GuySuCo. What we have done, we had 3 estates when we took government. 4 estates were closed down by the previous government. And in our campaign manifesto, we said that we'll reopen these estates on a phase system, a phase approach. So what we are doing now, we are working to bring back, as you rightly said, Rose Hall Estate. And I want to inform you and your audience that by the end of September, Rose Hall will become operational, and Rose Hall Estate will start to crush cane once again. We have already employed close to approximately 1,100 workers who were fired or who were severed at Rose Hall. We have completed the first phase, two sets of steam trials, which are very successful. We have cane replant. We have replant cane, and we have cane to last us for the entire second crop of 2023. So Rose Hall will make a contribution in terms of realizing a total of approximately 60,000 tons that GuySuCo have set as their target for the year 2023. So, as I said, what are the plans that we have for GuySuCo? Rose Hall will become operational by the end of September, or by the end of next month. I am hoping to organize the recommissioning very shortly, where the president will go up and we'll have that recommissioning of Rose Hall Estate. We have done a lot of work there, and only last week when we were in the Parliament, we will be replanting another 536 hectares of new canes for Rose Hall cultivation. When they abandon the estate, when they close the estate and abandon the land, today those lands are under forest. We have to do a lot of work to clear it. We have to do retilling, replanting. We have to rehabilitate the entire mechanical tillage system. The system, most of you all will know what I'm talking about. The entire system where the ponds come with the sling and the lift with the cane, and so those things we have to do an entire rehabilitation of the entire system there. And then we had to replant, retill, and rebuild almost a number of areas in the factory. So today I'm very happy to see that Rosal, one of the estates that suffered the most, one of the areas that suffered the most. And why I'm saying this? Because when the estate was closed at Rosal, there was no other economic activities for the people at Rosal to do. Unlike other areas, you might have the private sector would have chip in, worker would have find work in the private sector and other places. But Rosal was totally shut down. Family were disintegrated. Family were broken up. People had to leave their family to go different parts of the country or sometimes go overseas to work to maintain their family. Things that we taken for granted, utility services, were considered luxury in Kanji and those surrounding area because people had to give up services like telephone services and those things. People had to take out their children from school, and the entire village economy died in Rosal. Today, you are seeing the economic upturn back again in those areas. You are seeing a life coming back to those areas. You are seeing economic activity reemerging, and you are seeing that people now are more upbeat and the energy level is very high. So I want to inform you that Rosal will be operational by the end of September.
Well, that is very, very good news, um, not only for us, but also to the people around Rosal, as I said. The ILO study did point out the desperate plight into which people were cast. I mean, Wales was also it became an economic dead zone as well. Thank God you all are doing the Wales Development
So
Authority.
yeah, as you rightly said, and there are other activities too that we are bringing on stream to take care of those areas that would have had people retrenched or people severed and so on. You mentioned it, Rose. Wales is one, the GuySuCo project, and we are talking about that economic hub that we want to create at Wales, but also Enmore. Enmore now we are building an industrial site at Enmore, although we still are maintaining 200 and approximately 260 workers there that we were rehired. We are also looking and we are building a whole entire industrial zone at Enmore, which will absorb a lot of people and thousands of jobs will be created there at Enmore.
What are the specific plans you have for Enmore?
Well, generally, I think, as you rightly said, we are looking at the phased approach of reopening these estates. We haven't made, for example, Wales, I can pronounce definitely in Wales. Wales cannot come back right now. As you know, they destroy
Right,
Wales.
right.
But we are looking, as soon as Rosal is completely, I will look at other areas. We are not, for example, Skeldon. We have to look at Skeldon to bring other activities to area. We are looking to for Skeldon, we might reduce. We might reduce the activities that we had in sugar there, but that doesn't mean that we'll do away with sugar because you have a lot of private cane farmers. We met this afternoon with a lot of private cane farmers who have large scale land up there, the president and myself, and we will be meeting them tomorrow to start some other activities so that
Uh,
they can have opportunities to
wha-
make money.
what about this industrial hemp? Are you planning to
Well,
have that in
well, as you rightly
Scotland?
said, we right now are setting up the board, and I am looking at the regulatory authority. And as soon as that is set up, we will have the CEO being appointed, and then hopefully before the year is out, two regions have been identified for hemp production. The two regions are Region 6 and Region 10, and we are hoping also that we can use some of the land of Skeldon to give small scale farmers so that they can have some economic activity
Okay.
there.
One final question before I pass you on to Professor Mahin. Um, I know the criticism for subsidy to GuySuCo, you're aware of it. People have been saying that over 30 to $40 billion have been subsidized, and some of them even clamoring to close down the sugar industry. I I did an analysis. It was published in Guyana. where the subsidy per worker for GuySuCo was much, much less than the subsidy for bauxite dung. People are forgetting, they're not noticing that, but that is a very important point for people to understand that bauxite worker per capita is being subsidized much more heavily than the sugar workers. Um,
And now let me be very frank. You made a good point there in terms of subsidies, but I don't want to measure it against one set of the worker. Or they might want to say that we pull in using different type of workers to measure the contribution that we
no,
are
but
making.
I'm
But
just doing it a point of
I
view
agree, yeah,
of
I agree with
fairness.
you. But
Of fairness,
let me tell you, the contribution that sugar has made to our country, and now you know for a fact that the levy was there from the beginning of
Mhm,
nationalization. The levy had caused us to have almost all the development that we have had in Guyana came from sugar. You know
yeah,
that, and all your panelists would agree with me. Now
yeah,
we have seen since the EU would have reduced the preferential price or cut the price by 36%. We have seen sugar not only in Guyana, but across the world, across the ACP's country. We have seen sugar went into crisis. For us in Guyana, sugar was too important to fail.
mm,
And you know for a fact, we have seen the previous government would have closed 4 sugar estates, and thousands of workers directly were put on the breadline with their families, but indirectly, you had a number of persons who depend on GuySuCo were also placed on the breadline. So for us, or for people to say that we are contributing too much to GuySuCo, I can say that now we are giving back what was due to GuySuCo, and I think GuySuCo will turn around. The
mm,
plan that we have will turn around, and as you rightly said, that in other parts of the country, in different parts of the country, we are making tremendous contribution too.
mm,
And when you look the per capita contribution or the per capita investment, sugar is a small chunk, or the sugar industry is a small
mm,
chunk. You rightly put it, and
mm,
against other parts of the population.
mm. All right, thank you, Minister. Professor Mahin.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Minister.
Good evening.
How are you? Seems you always have a busy schedule, as you were saying you were with the president one moment, and then the next you're here with us at the program. So we're very privileged to have you. I will be remiss of me not to say our condolences on the passing of Dr. Lanchan. So we want to share our regards and our sympathy there. Um, the earlier program we were on with you, there is the ongoing initiative of reduction of 25% by 2025. As the Caribbean or Guyana rather, is positioning itself to regain, the head of the CARICOM state or the CARICOM region to be the main provider for food. Can you speak a little about the progress that has been made towards the 20 by 25 initiative, and what challenges perhaps have you encountered thus far?
Good. So that is a very good question. Let me thank you for that question. And I think that right now, as you have asked that question, the entire CARICOM, they are looking forward for Guyana leadership in that area. You know for a fact that when in 2020, when we assume government once again, Guyana would have lost its place to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in terms of agriculture, the leadership in agriculture. And since the formation of CARICOM, all the presidents in Guyana are from Guyana, normally lead in agriculture. But the last government would have, I don't know how Guyana lost that leadership position. Because when I became Minister of Agriculture, CARICOM wanted to craft the food strategy for the COVID pandemic. And the minister from St. Vincent and the Grenadines was leading that charge. However, we took that position. And since we retook that position, we have seen a renewed interest, and not only from farmers around the Caribbean, but from CARICOM heads and CARICOM government by themselves. So CARICOM has reiterated that they want to reduce the food import bill by 25% in another 2 years by 2025. We have started that almost 2 years ago. And when you look at around the Caribbean, I think that all the economy or all the countries in the economy in the CARICOM, they are now doing strategic activities to look how they could reduce the cost. Now, the Caribbean Food Import Bill, as I said, is $6 billion, but we have to have an investment almost approximately $7.5 billion US to reduce the food import bill of CARICOM by 25% in 2025. And tomorrow, incidentally, tomorrow we'll launch the Agri Investment Forum again. We'll launch it, which will be held in October this year. But what we have done, Guyana, as I said, we are now expanding on traditional crops that we have been producing over the years. And those traditional crops, you will know, like things like rice, sugar, the fruits and vegetables, and things like that. But we are going into new crops. Now, corn and soya is an important crop for us because for us to produce feed for the livestock industry, we have to have corn and soya. Now, corn and soya, we have been importing almost approximately $60 million US annually in corn and soya. We are hoping that by the end of 2025, Guyana will be self-sufficient and at the same time be a net exporter. We are hoping that by 2025, we have started the cultivation of corn and soya. To date, we have formed a partnership with a private group of farmers. We are putting in the necessary infrastructure, the Takama area, the Takama Savannah. We have built a silos there, a 9,000 ton silos there. We are building a wharf. We have built the road in that area. Now, you can leave Georgia in 2 hours and meet at the Takama Savannah, at the Takama area there. So we are hoping by the end of this year that production will increase to 3,000 acres at that area. Besides that, we have farmers in Region 9 and other farmers will contribute. So we are hoping by the first crop of next year, that will increase to about 5,000 acres. And by 2025, we are hoping that we can increase production by 25,000 acres, 2 crops per year, which we will have enough to use in Guyana and at the same time be a net exporter in the Caribbean. That will drastically reduce part of the import bill for CARICOM. Because when you make the feed, the livestock industry will start to produce more. Guyana is self-sufficient already in livestock in terms of poultry needs. We are looking now to be a net exporter. We are looking to start our own breeding program to produce our own hatching eggs. Every year, Guyana is importing approximately 53 million hatching eggs in Guyana. We are working with the private sector to develop that program and start our own breeder program so we can produce our hatching eggs. We have started to work in the cattle industry. We up our artificial insemination program. We imported from Texas recently 63 breeding bulls. We are working with farmers to give them better breed animals so that they can develop their stock. And we have signed a contract with a Brazilian company to start embryo transplant. Now we have started that so that we have better breed of animal, both for beef and dairy. We will be building this year, by the end of this year, we'll build 3 milk parlor in Guyana in Region 5 and Region 4. We already have a milk plant at Anvawak. So we have already started the production of dairy in Guyana to be self-sufficient, to reduce that bill. We have started bringing young people into agriculture. You know, young people got a stigma to agriculture. They feel that agriculture is a menial job. They feel agriculture is for old people who never went to school. We have to change that mentality. And not only in Guyana, but across the Caribbean. We have many young people who would have passed through tertiary institution, who would have graduated with a BSc, who would have been an agronomist, but they are not doing the work that they graduated in. They are just behind a desk, writing, pushing paper, doing clerical work. So what the president and I did, we said that we have to attract these people. We have to do agriculture in a smarter way. We form a company, we make these young people shareholders, and now we have close to about 100 shade houses at Mandripo that these people now are selling, and they are doing high-value crops, and they are selling these high-value crops to the hospitality industry. In 2021, we imported in Guyana $2.6 billion in broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, bell pepper, and lettuce. Now, those produce from the high value farm will be sold to the hospitality industry. Please, and they already have market. They are start sold at the Marriott and other hotels in Georgetown. You have the oil and gas industry. There's a vast opportunity there. So those are two areas that we are going with. We have started the small ruminants program, where we want to build we want to build our own brand to replace the New Zealand lamb and the Australian lamb to this part of the world. So we are working with Barbados. We have received already 850 black belly sheep. Very shortly, we will receive the other 150 to make that 1,000. That program have already been launched by His Excellency the President. Now we have farmers who have registered in that program. We work with them, and that black belly sheep program will be a black belly brand coming out of Guyana, but that will be a Caribbean brand. So we'll reduce also the bill from that importation of mutton coming into the Caribbean. We have started in the aquaculture industry, a new one now. This is a new industry for us in Guyana. We used to talk about it. Today we have started it. The brackish water shrimp. These small farmers in the rural areas, the village areas, that was a subsistence activity. We have started to work with them. Both the vice president and the president we have met. They said that, look, let us give these people funding. Let us help them to develop their farm. We are now looking to develop about 105 farms in the East Berbice quarantine area, because the activities concentrate mainly in those areas. We have moved production. We are about only 40% completion. We have moved production from 10,000 kilogram monthly to roughly about 80 to 90,000 kilogram already. Those money are circulating back in the community. Those are opportunities for rural families. More money is being circulated. So those are big increase. We have started the production from Guyana, from the Ministry of Agriculture perspective. We have started to do the Vanami. We're in a Vanami, the prawns production. At Anhoak, we have already constructed 10 ponds, and we are working with communities there where the government is funding those ponds. So all these opportunities coming out of Guyana. So we have seen, and when you look at the growth, livestock sector, we have seen this. We have already started to see growth coming out. This year is projected to grow by 12.1%. The fishing subsector is projected to grow by 8.4%. We are seeing more catches. We are seeing the manufacturing sector. We are seeing that is projected to grow by approximately 5.7%. So all these sectors are geared to rice. Rice will be another important area for us, because we have seen now India withdrawal from the world market with their rice. Guyana rice is in demand, and this crop we'll see. I am very optimistic that we'll see a bountiful harvest. We are seeing already started to see yield increase from 35 bags per acre to 45, 50 bags. Today I have report that some people in the west coast of Demerara started to receive 50 bags per acre. We have the new yield that we have started, the GRDB 16, that is capable of giving almost 60 bags per acre. We have started the biofortified rice, where we're growing the zinc now in the rice. Very shortly, that will become a candidate variety to farmers around the country, and we'll plan that will attract preferential price. So in a nutshell, I can go on and on in different areas, but in a nutshell, I think with Guyana's, what Guyana is doing now, and with Guyana's involvement with other CARICOM countries, right now Trinidad and Tobago, I am helping them to develop back their rice sector. Recently, I have supplied to them 100,000 tons of rice seed back to Trinidad. I am helping Barbados right now to start brackish water shrimp. Who would have imagined that a place like Barbados, their whole economy is built on tourism. They are going into agriculture now. They have started, and I have sent technicians recently there to set up their shade house program. I have sent technicians recently to set up their brackish water shrimp program. Now Trinidad is calling on me. St. Kitts. So the demand is high from Guyana, although we are setting up our own system. But the entire Caribbean is looking forward. They are looking forward to Guyana for that leadership and for that technical help to build their thing. And I think that with what we are doing, and the contribution from other organizations, we will be able to reduce this food import bill substantially by 25%.
Uh, quick, I'm happy for the extensive detail, Minister. Given that you said the import bill for the region is about $6 billion,
Approximately, yeah.
do we know, given all the initiatives you have outlined, by 2025, what particular market share or percentage of that import bill does Guyana look to facilitate to the region?
Well, I
And
can.
additional part of my question, given agriculture in our region is so heavily reliant upon favorable climate and weather conditions, we are confronted with the reality of climate change. What specifically is being done to mitigate some of those risk factors while you have a plethora of initiatives ongoing?
Okay, good. First of all, I can call a figure, but I am very optimistic that Guyana will have to make a substantial contribution to that 25%. A very, very substantial contribution with what we are doing in Guyana. But also what we have been doing, we have been modernizing the infrastructure that we have reached in when we went into government. And that is why you have seen increase of budgetary allocation by 150%. Now, you rightly said that Guyana and the Caribbean itself is a very vulnerable area in terms of climate change. And we are seeing climate change real now. Before, when you was a young boy kid growing up, you would have seen 2 inches of rainfall in a month. Now you see 5 and 6 inches of rainfall in an hour. And we have to prepare, and Guyana is below. We are very challenged because Guyana is below the sea level too. And gravity flow is very hard for us. And only 6 hours we can drain our system. Sometimes the sluices open for 6 hours and then the tide come back. What we are doing. Now, we have taken all those things into consideration, first of all. And we are looking now, and we have already started it. We are putting a system in place where we have drainage of the entire agriculture sector for 24 hours, not only during the tidal drainage, we have 6 hours. So we have all these sluices across this region, across this country. We have pumps being set to complement the drainage system. We are looking now to start a few projects in vulnerable regions like Region 6, Region 5, the Hope Lake Canal that former president, under his presidency, former Jack, they would have built that Hope Lake Canal. You remember when he built that canal, they said that was a white elephant. But when we had the 2021 flood, Georgetown and East Coast was not flooded. That was like the other regions. So we will start that. We already have the funding. We'll start those Hope Lake Canal. Those are mega infrastructure. But we coming back to smarter way of doing agriculture. We can't continue to go and do agriculture like the same old way that we have been doing it. We are working with people now. We are building, working in to educate them. We are revamping the entire extension services at the Ministry of Agriculture so that the extension officers can be equipped to help people in the field to ensure that they introduce best practices, how they could do it in a more modern way. And last but not least, I am working at the ministerial task force level. We have been working to see an insurance package for farmers in the Caribbean. But in Guyana, I have already started discussion with companies to look at Guyana. I'm very passionate about it because when we have natural disaster, when you have disaster and people, crops and livestock are being lost, we have to give money from the treasury. Government has to compensate, and you can't compensate all the things that somebody lost. They might have some compensation, but we are looking to do crop insurance now and also livestock insurance. I am working with a company. We have already started so these things will help to mitigate losses and the vulnerability that farmers are experiencing in this part of the world.
Thanks, Minister. I think we lost Dr. Tar, so I'll hand it off to my colleague, Professor Passat.
Minister, there are a couple of things that you mentioned. And one is that Guyana for long has survived on a dual economy, an agriculture sector and a single urban sector. You mentioned sugar. Sugar was One was the agriculture sector that produced the surplus income that practically served the entire country. What incentives are you giving today to bring back the agriculture sector? Because previous government has not invested in that area. And so there has been a lag, as you mentioned, but also there has also been the problem of getting the labor force necessary to revive that sector of the economy. So
So
what
first
do
of
you
all,
have?
we have. I think when you look at what we have given back, or how we have the encouragement or the incentive, as you rightly call it, Professor. I think when you look at the incentive, there are a lot of incentives for agriculture. For example, first of all, we look at all the factors that were impeding agriculture. For example, the last government would have raised land rental and DNI charges about 5,000, between 3 to 5,000%. When we get back in government, we immediately reverse that. So from $3,500 to $15,000, 3,000. We just move it back and take it back to $3,500. VAT on agriculture inputs, agriculture machinery, and all the agriculture equipment and everything. We took away the 14% VAT, so people don't have to pay additional taxes, and not only in agriculture but other agencies like the mining sector. You understand? So those are incentives that we are giving to the areas. What we have also done, we have also, like for farmers, we are giving them inputs, all the planting materials. We are helping them to give them fertilizer. We are giving them duty-free access to machinery. We have reduced zero tax on fuel. So all these things are incentive for farmers to help themselves rather than to put additional costs and additional burden on them. These are measures that we have put in place to help farmers as incentive. We are, many farmers, for a fact, in the agro processing area, many farmers now, we are building these agro processing facilities being run by staff, and also they are adding values to their produce without any cost from themselves, without paying anything. The policy in terms of what you call it, in terms of opportunities to farmers, we have like for example, household farmers, small scale farmers. We have given them inputs. We have given them materials. Livestock farmers, we have I mentioned what we have done. We have given them breeding bulls. We are now working with them to give them small ruminants, the small ruminants farmers sheep. We are working with the fish farmers to give them so a number of incentive, a number of help we have been giving farmers to help themselves so that we can develop the agriculture sector. And that is why we have seen a renewed interest with the kind of policies, with the kind of system that we have implemented in the agriculture sector. When for example, one of the measures, when we had the steep increase in fertilizer, what we did, we purchased fertilizer, almost $2 billion, and we give to rice farmers and cash crop farmers across the country. When they suffer flood, we give them, we budgeted $7.8 billion, $7.6 billion. We ensure that we give rice farmers and cash crop farmers and also livestock farmers to go back as quickly as possible. So these things they never received it before. They never received these kinds of incentive. The policies that were there were policies that drive people away from agriculture. And we have implemented people-friendly policy. We have been working with people to bring them because we see as a government, our vision is to ensure that we become self-sufficient in terms of producing food and become food security. That is why we have been putting this system in place so that it can work.
Can you please explain what incentives are there for labor force participation in the sugar industry?
Well, there are a number of incentives. For example, GuySuCo workers will have their own custom and practices in terms of incentive. They have a number of incentives for labor in GuySuCo. And I can explain it. For example, they have, if a worker cuts so much ton of cane, you'll have incentive for that. If the worker delay for some period, they got delay in payment. If the workers go in the field and they got, they call it obstacle. An obstacle is thing like grass, heavy grass, or they get payment for that. So there are those are incentive. At the end of the week, if they surpass the target, they get an additional payment, additional days pay. At the end of the crop, if they surpass the crop target, they got something called the annual production incentive. Those are incentive for workers, a few days pay. They get holiday with pay. Those are benefit to sugar workers directly. I'm talking about holiday with pay. They got something at the end of the crop, or once a year. They call it sickness benefit. So all these are incentive for sugar workers. So they got, I believe, 5 ton, 7 ton, and 7 ton. If you could make that for a week, you get an incentive. You get different type or higher rate in terms of earning. So these things are more attractive for the workers to work to ensure that they have maximum production.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear you say that there's a gradation of wages as incentives.
Right.
So
And
that
we have been given, since we got back into government, we have been giving the sugar workers every year an increase in the wages and salary. Unlike the previous government, they were in government in office for 5 years, and sugar workers never receive a cent increase from them. Instead of giving, and you would have learned, or you probably would have known, people like Nagamutu and Ramjitan went on television and promised the sugar workers 20% increase, right? And promised the rice farmers $6,000 to $9,000 a bag for the paddy.
Yep.
And when they went into government, Granger said that rice is a private business. All those things. I'm just refreshing back people's memory so they can know what took place before.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that, Minister, that the promises are made, but promises are not kept. One of the other things that you mentioned is that the investments of repatriates into the agriculture sector. One of the comments I have heard over time is that the expatriates, with their newfound wealth, are competing with the local producers, the local farmers, the local agriculturalists. And this has created some perceptions of inequity. How have you addressed that issue that the locals feel with the repatriation scheme?
That is not true. That might be the perception from outside of Guyana, but in reality, it's not so.
That's
in
not true,
Guyana,
Minister.
let me be very frank. In Guyana, what we are doing now, we are encouraging our locals to participate and be part of this initiative that we have. Those things that I mentioned just now are open to Guyanese, and we have been working very closely with farmers, Guyanese local farmers, to farm. What we have been doing also, we have been linking and pairing investors with Guyanese farmers so that they can work together. The investors have the capital, the Guyanese farmers have the land, the government give the incentive, and we produce together. But as Minister of Agriculture, I've been going across this country, the length and breadth of this country. So I have first-hand knowledge and can tell you, farmers in Guyana are working and they are investing. I don't think that they have that perception that foreigners or the expat that come into Guyana are enjoying better condition or getting better production than them. Guyanese farmers, first and foremost, they are this government's priority, and we are working with every one of them. For example, let me tell you what. We have started, let me just give you 2 small examples. We have started the production of corn and soya. We want to be self-sufficient. I just mentioned it, and that's a very important commodity for us. As long as we can be self-sufficient and also be a net exporter in the Caribbean, Guyana will receive a lot of revenue coming out of that. We started to work with the Guyanese people, the Guyanese farmers. We form a consortium with them. We have the Guyanese farmers, roughly about 10 Guyanese farmers. They form that company. They are doing the planting of the corn and soya. We have put in the necessary investment in infrastructure, and that's the partnership we're talking about. Today, as I mentioned earlier, the president and myself, we went to a number of areas across the country. We met with local Guyanese, and they have land. Now we'll work with them to let them form themselves in a group like that, a consortium, and we will also put in the necessary investment. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, we have a meeting at State House to put things in place so that the local farmers can start to cultivate these crops and have opportunity. The president went to the Dominican Republic. A number of private sector, local private sector farmers, manufacturers, and all businessmen, local businessmen, almost 100 Guyanese went with him there. They explore business opportunities. They came back to Guyana. The Dominican Republic need things like black-eyed peas, red beans. We have ready market there. We start that immediately. So these are the things that we are putting in place. So the perception might be that, but that is not the case in Guyana.
Well, the thing is, it's not very true that there is no reality to the perception, because most of Guyanese who have not left Guyana do not have the capital to invest in hundreds and hundreds of acres. And I'm glad to hear that you say that you are pairing the capital investment with the local farmer, so, to bring about some kind of expansion of agriculture.
But Doc, Professor, let me tell you one. Look, the president and myself met with all the poultry producers in this country, small scale farmers. Now, one of the issues that they face, we had this disease that we had in Guyana, the hepatitis that we had a lot of these white broilers buried. So we are now overcoming that. We give to the poultry industry, give $29 million to bring in vaccine. But that is not the case. The small farmers, as you rightly said, we're talking about capital. We talk how the government can help. We have 4 small farmers. When they go to the bank want collaterals. They don't have the kind of collaterals. And mostly these farmers, they are very afraid of taking loans. So we have the bank. We have the Demerara Bank. We have the GBTI. We have Republic Bank. We met with the farmers. We heard them, what they said. Now we put the bank to work with them. You know what the collaterals now the bank use? If they are a supplier to me, I am saying that, look, Mr. John is supplying me meat board, and as such, he can take a loan. So that's the collateral. You have to find your transport or find some registration and take it to the bank. So small loan like $5 million to $10 million, they got to get no collateral. The president put system in place, and that's the kind of way that we normally do things in terms of trying to help the small farmers.
Yeah.
Right? The vice president would have went around the country, had a number of meetings, and these small business bureau that we have are giving grants to small farmers, small businesses, so that they can start a business or they could inject some cash into their businesses or farm. So a lot of opportunities like that we are having. And we are now working to help these small scale farmers.
Minister, we only got 10 minutes more. I want to draw your attention to a very important factor that influences food production, the drainage situation in Guyana. Now, we have the Hope Canal in East Coast. I think you had mentioned in the last program that the government is planning to do 3 more, one in the quarantine and the West Coast Borbies, and probably one in quarantine. Did I hear correct? A similar
Yes, but
canal,
Doc, I believe you lost the feed when we were just talking about that.
Yes, I did. I did lose the feed.
So I mentioned, let me just repeat what I said.
Okay.
We already have the fund. The fund was appropriated now recently at Parliament. We are now working. We have already have
Okay.
the preliminary design, and we are working with
Okay.
McDonald to get that system in place. And very shortly, those projects. And no, not one now, not one canal, Hope Like Canal. We might have like around 3 in Region 6. We might have about 2 in Region 5. So depend on the areas to drain. That is why we want to, and that
Okay.
those areas you rightly said, those problems that confront us. And Mahendra raised the issue about the vulnerability of the agriculture sector, how we can mitigate these problems, and these are some of the way we are approaching it. The Hope Like Canal will start. I'm very optimistic. Before the year is out, we'll start construction of these Hope Like Canal.
Um, I know I missed you out for a while. I don't know why. But what were the wheat cultivation that you're supposed to do experimental program in Philippines? How is that coming along?
They want. I didn't
The
get you
wheat,
that with that.
wheat, the
Okay,
wheat.
we have started the trial. As I said, we started the trial, and the indoor was very successful, and we have continued the trial. Right now, we took it to Region 8, Paramacatai. They got temporary climate there, and we are also doing it at Santa Fe in Region 9. We are partnering with Embrapa. Embrapa is like the NARI that we have in Guyana. Embrapa is that institution they have in Brazil. So we are working very closely, and ICA is helping us. So I am optimistic that that will come on stream shortly. As long we can have it grown tropically in Guyana, we will start do that. And also we're looking at the production of quinoa. You know, I'm working now with a company from United States, and they will start the trial in East Borby shortly to start to grow quinoa. And that is in demand now right around the world.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question to the minister?
Go ahead.
Minister, can you please explain in terms of rotational crops what you're doing?
Well, a number of areas we are looking at it. As I rightly said, what we are doing now, you will see that we're doing in not so much a rotational crop, because what we are doing in the way that I explained when Mahendra would have raised the question, that we're doing agriculture in a smarter way now, and we're doing it in a way that is not affecting the fertility of the soil, in terms of we're doing more in shade house thing, we're doing hydroponics and things that you talk about just now, like the large scale one, like corn and soya. We are doing rotation there. We are doing like last crop, they plant. We are looking to start the cultivation of millet to look at those areas. We are looking to we started last crop to do sorghum. So those are some of the rotation that we are doing. In the other areas that we are doing root crops, we are looking to rotate it there too, because sometimes the nutrition of the soil need other crops. So we are looking to do that. Our extension officers are working with the farmers to ensure, and what we are also doing, which never done in Guyana, we are looking to do testing, soil testing around the country. I should have mentioned this too. We recently signed an agreement where we are working with an Indian company, the Terry Group, to start our tissue culture lab. Now, Guyana, if we want to develop agriculture, you can't produce hundred of plant or get 100 of planting material. We want to produce planting material on a large scale, so that way we go into tissue culture. We want to produce millions of plants, right? We have very shortly that project have started, and we'll have our tissue culture lab. We are now rehabilitating all the nurseries, because our nurseries, them are very anemic. We are looking now to do specific nursery. For example, the Timiri nursery, we want to do all the citrus crops there. And likewise, other parts of the country. We have 11 nurseries across the country. We are doing that to ensure that we build our nursery so that we can respond to the needs of the population in those areas. We have developed these coconut nurseries. We have already, since I became Minister of Agriculture, we have developed 8 new nurseries across the country. This year we'll build another 2. And now people are going to come to Hope Coconut Estate or Nari for a coconut. We have all across this country, Pomeroon, Region 9, Region 1, you call the region. All across we have coconut nurseries now. So as you rightly said, these things will help us to catapult the agriculture sector, where people not have to spend money and come to central point, right? So we have model farm. We are now building model farms in different parts of the country so that we can also train farmers how they could grow specific crops.
One final question to you on Wales Estate. I know the factory has been cannibalized and most of the lands were given out to farmer PNC connections. Do you still have any significant portion of land remaining at Wales?
Yeah, there are
I-
lands. There are lands, and we have to continue to develop those land. There are still a large set of land there, but the PNC APNO would have given people land to do cultivation. Their friends, a lot of friends, received lands there, and those lands were idle. So I'm hoping that the land fall under NISIL, and hoping NISIL can get back some of those lands for us to ensure that we start the operation that we want there. Wales will become a city in terms of development taking place there. The entire eastbound corridor with the high-span bridge that we are building across the Demerara River, right? And now we have the shore base going across there, and we have the artificial island being built outside of the mouth of the Demerara River. The entire west coast of Demerara will be almost like Georgetown.
Yeah, right. All right, gentlemen. Professor Mahin, your last question, and Professor Narayan, your last question.
Yeah, quick question, Minister. I know we are focusing on the region and CARICOM, but it would be remiss of me not to ask, is there any focus of bilateral relationship strengthening with the agriculture sector, with the US and the European countries as well?
Well, a lot. I have been traveling in different areas. For example, last year I was in Iowa. At that they normally have a festival there. I have a lot of bilateral. Only last 2 weeks I was in Rome at that conference there. I had a number of bilateral. I'll be going back there again, and in different parts we have in India. We have a lot of help coming from India to us. I went to India last year, and I will go. Not last year, earlier this year in March, I was in Delhi. I visited all the institutions and specialists there. So I'll bring some specialists to Guyana to help us in sugar, wheat, hemp, rice, aquaculture, all those areas. We have very close bilateral relation with China. We have close relation with the United States. I have had discussion with a number of official USAID and a number of other organizations. They are helping us. So right across the world, I think we have been having these bilateral relations, and we have been looking at cooperation to develop the agriculture sector. And when I talk about the agriculture sector, people might say I am prejudiced because I only talk about agriculture. But agriculture is one of the most important activities. And you know that other sectors also are blooming in Guyana and moving
Professor Narayan?
Minister, is there opportunities for light agriculture that complements light industries to complement the agriculture sector?
Yes, there are a lot of opportunities that can help. You could come and do to complement the agriculture sector. As a matter of fact, right now my colleague and I we are working to do agrotourism, to start agrotourism in Guyana. Right, that will be a very important activity to help bring in revenue, because Guyana has the environment to do agrotourism. There are other small industries that you can also build to supplement the agriculture sector. So there are a lot of opportunities, and with the oil and gas, the population getting bigger. I mean, that activity coming more on board, we'll have millions of barrels of oil being produced. I think Guyana is poised to be, in another 5 years, as the president always said, that we are working to build an economy for 2030 and beyond. So the heavy lifting, the hard work will be from now to 2030 to rebuild this country, to build this economy, to improve the living standard of the population, to change the culture, to do things in a better way, to improve the infrastructure, to change the aesthetic. All those things that we are doing now will be for the benefit from 2030 and beyond. for the future generation of the country. And a government that worth its salt will always build for the future generation to come.
All right. Thank you, Minister. I thought that Professor Mahan would have asked you when he asked about bilateral relations. He would ask about the status of the Gilbaka.
Well,
Pretty
only
much.
recently, I can just say
Pretty
that,
much.
only recently they asked us some more questions, and we send all those questions to the FSIS. But I want to make this point. Let me make this point before we close, Dr. Carol. In 2018, the former government would have received warning from the United States, and they received almost 4 or 5 times they received warning that this species of fish will be banned from Guyana, and they never took heed of it. They just neglect the entire system. Now we are trying to get back into the system. We did a lot of work since I became Minister of Agriculture. We did testing in the Atlantic Ocean. We changed the manual. We changed the legislation. We put new system in place. All those things are necessary. Over there, the FDA, they want to see this thing. And they are wearing, unlike us, where we caught this thing in the wild, they are wearing it in ponds, right? So all those things challenges we have to confront. And I'm very optimistic that we'll regain that status once again. And y'all get the Gilbaka Congo.
Yeah, well, we need that, Okay, Minister, thank you very much. It's very informative. Of course, you are very knowledgeable and very hardworking. One of the hardest working ministers in government. Would you like to make your closing remarks?
So as I said, I'm very happy, and rest assured that I will be back sometime on your program. But the agriculture sector, as I said, is poised for development. Government recognized that the agriculture sector, agriculture development goes beyond mere food production and has far-reaching effects on various aspects of society that we were talking about just now, including poverty alleviation and rural prosperity. I've talked about those things just now. As such, agriculture is not being done in isolation, but rather wider context. The wider context of an integrated food system. Our president has called for a targeted approach to food security that also involves the integration of the health, education, and technology sector. You can't do food production without the health sector. You can't, or the education or technological sector, along with climate change mitigation. So food security can better enable national prosperity. And that is what we are doing in Guyana. With such an approach, in another few years, as I rightly said, not just the agriculture sector, but all other sectors will experience transformational development that will benefit the entire Guyana and the entire Guyanese population. So that's the way we are focusing the agriculture. That's the way we are focusing the food sector. That's the way we want to be food secure, and also be Guyana, as I said, be a hub of food production and be a hub of economic activity and prosperity for years to come.
Thank you very much, Minister. Please don't go off offline. I just want to discuss a matter with you.
All right, good.
Asif, we are still live.